Thank you all for joining us for Executive Insights, our signature speaker series here in the Smeal College of Business. My name is Chuck Whiteman. I'm the John and Karen Arnold Dean of the Smeal College. We're pleased today to welcome Nat Lyckowski, Global Neurodiversity Advancement Leader and Supply Chain Inventory Transformation Lead for IBM, the American Multinational Technology Corporation. Nat will share insights about embracing neurodivergent workers, as well as thinking beyond traditional approaches to enhance supply chains. She holds a bachelor's degree from Sarah Lawrence College, as well as a master's from Boston University. I'm excited to bring you into a conversation with Nat about her insights on neurodiversity and supply chain transformation. You can submit a question of your own to the URL that you see over there. And students who need to verify attendance can scan a QR code as they depart. It's on the back wall. QR codes can be found on the exits. For those attending virtually, a QR code will appear on screen at the end of our conversation. So please help me in extending Nat a warm Smeal welcome to Executive Insights. So let's begin, Nat, with asking you to tell us a little bit about your distinct but related dual roles at IBM.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for listening, whether live or virtual, or if you're catching the replay. I know your time is very, very valuable. I think it's exam time now at Smeal, so full props to everybody carving out some time here. I've been with IBM just shy of 30 years, and I've been in inventory management, specifically reverse logistics, since that time. And in 2015, when IBM started working in the neurodiversity space, this was an area I was very passionate about. I am neurodivergent myself. Yes, we do exist. And I'm also the parent of one. So I was able to put that passion to use, and I'm truly honored and blessed to have two paid roles within IBM as Global Neurodiversity Advancement Leader, and also my role in business simplification and inventory management.
Great. So for those in the audience who might not be familiar, could you please define neurodiversity for us?
Absolutely, and I'm going to answer the question with a question, which is, can you raise your hand if you've ever heard of the word neurodiversity, or if you didn't have to Google it before you came? So maybe a third, which is really exciting because I love when I'm not preaching to the choir. So this is a chance for folks to open their hearts and minds a little bit. So the concept of neurodiversity is, if you take the word diversity at its heart, is to respect and accept neurological differences as a part of the general human variation. Just like race and gender, sexual orientation and identification, being neurologically different and viewing that as part of who you are and not a defect. So things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, Tourette's, things that make you neurologically different. And it's a part of you, similar to LGBTQ, that you can't see. And it's a part that comes with additional needs at times. We all have our superpowers, but we also all have our kryptonite. So learning how to put your superpowers to work, learning how to address your kryptonite, or maybe get understanding for that kryptonite so you can use those superpowers, is very important. And with that comes specific language and really having it be another chair at that diversity table instead of something that we should try to cure or mask or be ashamed of. I personally list being neurodivergent as a skill on my resume, but that's a personal journey that I've been on.
So one of the words that you used just now, I heard for the first time this morning, and I think I know what it means, but I'd like to ask some elaboration. Dyscalculia?
Yes, dyscalculia is sometimes called dyslexic of math, of numbers. That's not exactly true, but it's the way you process math in your head.
Great. Okay, so I did more or less have it right, so I'm happy about that. So Let's talk a little bit about IBM and its journey on supporting neurodivergent workers. It's considered among the corporate leaders in leveraging the vast potential of neurodivergent workers. Can you describe what role you play in that?
Absolutely. IBM's neurodiversity journey started actually in 2015. For the past 100 years, IBM has been a champion for diversity of women, of people of color, of different races and creeds. But IBM was actually not the first company to be focusing on neurodiversity. So we had some leverage, we had some time to make up. And it was actually at the United Nations, April 2nd is recognized as World Autism Day. One of my fellow colleagues and very, very good friend was at that event and saw what all of these other companies, SAP, EY, and others, that were doing in this space and said, hey, we need to be doing this. So a small ERG or BRG formed, and the match was lit. We went from 50 members quickly to 2,000, getting executive sponsors. In 2017, we rebranded as Neurodiversity at IBM. Even got our swag. Gotta love swag. To embrace other neurological differences that sometimes are not seen and heard. April at IBM is Neurodiversity Advancement Month. We've moved past awareness, we've moved past acceptance, and now we want to take action and embrace and help advance and celebrate things that the neurodivergent community has brought to IBM. And for my role there, casually, I'm called Mama Bear. And if people know that mystique, I'm kind of soft and squishy in some places, but nobody messes with my peeps. And both neurodivergent and neurodivergent allies are my peeps. And it's a no-brainer of why we shouldn't. It's 1 in 20 people.
So you referred to the swag. Could you describe the logo on the swag?
Oh, absolutely. So for those of you that do not know, IBM's logo is a rebus. So there's an eyeball for the I, a bumblebee for the B, and the M to make IBM. And part of our diversity campaign is called Be Equal. And you can kind of see there's a little equal symbol within the bumblebee on the veins. And we have a ring of bumblebees that are all different colors. So like the teal bumblebee is for our Pan-Asian community, and our burgundy is for women, and so on. And the gold bumblebee represents people with diverse abilities and neurodiversity. And if you are a nerd, raise your hand if you're a nerd. There we go. Gold on the periodic table is AU, so that's kind of cool that there's a little secret connection there. It wasn't planned, but we could at least say that it was.
Well, my reference to the swag was self-serving because I wanted to be able to say that last night she presented me with a swag T-shirt that has that logo on it, so it's very cool. I can't wait to wear it. So can you describe a little bit about the tactics that IBM uses to engage with neurodivergent job candidates, whether traditional or out of the box?
Absolutely, and I think it's both. We had our first targeted neurodivergent hiring in Lansing, Michigan in 2017, and we've done targeted neurodivergent hiring cohorts in over 11 countries so far. But we're also trying to make this more mainstream and have it be the way that IBM just hires everyone. So asking the question, do you need an accommodation? We can change that language to say, how can I help you succeed? And making that more human, making it more human friendly. So similar to things that you could ask in college for like time and a half on a coding exam, you could also ask, it would be more comfortable for me if I know that whoever is interviewing me has completed neurodiversity acceptance training. So I know there's not going to be a bias on eye contact, or not going to be a bias on if I don't want to talk about the weather. There's a very high statistic, it's over 40% of college-educated autistic adults that are unemployed or underemployed. Advanced degrees, PhDs, that are working in coffee shops. Why? Because they don't have the access or they don't have the acceptance to get through an interview. Who here has seen or heard of quiet hours at toy stores? So autistic children can shop for their toys in a quiet environment. Anybody heard of that? Okay, so a few. This is not something that we grow out of. So why would we focus on having quiet hours for a toy store versus an internship fair or a job fair, or having a dedicated time to know you're going to speak with Google or IBM at 11:15? So you don't have to go into that, lack of a better word, mosh pit when they fill the gymnasium with 200 people and you're elbowing in to try to get time. That can be just as discriminatory if there was no elevator. So what are we doing to reduce and change those barriers? And the important thing is working proactive. There was an article I wrote for LinkedIn, and the title of it was, "You Can't Sow Seeds in Sand." So you have to work to build that environment, that it is safe for individuals to come out, to use the word, right? It's not like saying Lord Voldemort. We can say the word, we can say autistic, dyslexic, neurodivergent, and use it in a positive identity-first language model.
I'm sure that the students resonated with the idea of a mosh pit because they've seen what a career fair looks like here. And I must assure you that your visit here has raised our awareness about the need for rethinking maybe how those work. Maybe during COVID, when we had some virtual components to our career fairs, we did a better job of that, but we probably need to think about it some more.
And most of these things cost no money. We've done reverse job fairs where the students are seated and the companies rotate through. So just thinking not outside of the box, but throwing away the box, right? There is no spoon for all of my Matrix fans out there.
So this is a question from the audience, which I think is interesting, and it follows up on your work at IBM. And it is, was there a specific driver at IBM that allowed the company to focus on neurodivergent workers? And what type of education do they provide to the non-neuro workforce to reinforce this diversity? I read that verbatim. I'm not exactly sure what non-neuro workforce means. Maybe non-neurodiverse workforce?
I think it
maybe
probably
that's
means
what
neurotypical, which
Okay.
is the term that's used. So starting on language, neurodivergent is somebody who identifies as having a neurological difference, and neurotypical is somebody who does not. And it's not something that we should use casually. Like I've heard people say, oh, I can't find my keys, I'm so ADHD. That's kind of a microaggression, so try to avoid those things. Or I've also heard, oh, aren't we all a little neurodivergent? And then my question to that is, are we all a little woman? Are we all a little gay? Are we all a little black? This is an identity that you identify with. Whether or not you have that formal recognition, also known as a diagnosis on a piece of paper, is something different. And I'm personally a proponent of self-recognition, right? You don't go to the doctor to find out if you are Black or Asian or a lesbian or any other diversity factor, right? You know who you are. You don't need to prove it on paper. Sometimes you do need to prove it on paper, like to get time and a half on an exam, but generally as an identity. So some things we've done, sorry, I don't have a train of thought. I have a Roomba that kind of bounces around, and kudos whoever gave me the support. But things that we've done at IBM is had these targeted cohorts, but then also trying to do events like this where we're publicly speaking about the importance of recognizing that 1 in 20 people are neurodivergent, and recognizing that there's data There's a business case for it. It isn't just the warm, fuzzy, kumbaya, look at us, we're supporting diversity. Studies have been done to show neurodivergence. I think JP Morgan did a study, 92% more productive, 66% higher job loyalty, 32% new innovation brought by embracing neurodivergence, which sounds like a pretty good thing for a business to do. And then you're going to see the other side of it, which is for almost no money. It's almost 100% ROI positive. So why wouldn't you do this? It's a matter of having like an ADHDer to be able to say, I'm working in the office and you sit me next to the kitchenette, right? And the microwave's beeping and somebody's burning their leftover Thai lunch and dishes haven't been done in a while, and I can't focus and do my best work here. Can I sit someplace quiet? Can I get noise-canceling headphones? Can I work from home? But that also goes to universal design, because nobody wants to sit there, right? Put a door on it, put an exhaust fan, make it better for everybody. We offer safe virtual spaces for IBM neurodivergents to come together for peer support. We have one for actually autistics. We have one for actually neurodivergents. We have one for neurodivergent family and caregivers, because these are all different aspects. And one thing we're very proud of is that our program is neurodivergent run and led. And representation and parity is so important here, because who else should offer these ideas and help steer the initiatives? And that safe space is also where I, in my role, can go to and say, what do we want to do for our April? And get that buy-in, that sense of representation. I used the example last night is that if we were running an initiative for people of color or women or another diversity factor, let's just say women. We're running an initiative to support women. And the panel is all men. People would recognize that that's a problem. Maybe very loudly recognize that that is a problem. But when we talk of the disability space or the neurodiversity space, it's, oh, I have a PhD in psychology, I'm an expert, or I'm a parent of. And allies are very important. You need synergy with your allies, but we need the neurodivergence to come out, and I am borrowing with love that term from the LGBT community, because it's something you can't see, to come up and say what you need. Although there is a term that if you've met one autistic, you've met one autistic, or if you met one neurodivergent, you've met one neurodivergent. I like to change that to say, if you met one neurodivergent, you should meet some more, because we're pretty cool.
Thanks. Creating an environment, and in particular a learning environment for us that's diverse, equitable, inclusive, and offers a sense of belonging is a priority for us here in SMEAL. Clearly, IBM has a commitment to that as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that as being important and what advice that you have for corporate and institutional leaders for recruiting and enabling success of neurodivergent workers?
In the case of getting more neurodivergence awareness and acceptance and advancement, the things that you would do, asking the question, is what would you do to get more women? Or what would you do to get more Black? Or what would you do to get more LGBT people to come forward? The answer is exactly the same, which is you have to talk about it. You have to talk about unconscious bias. You have to build empathetic messaging to be able to have that hard conversation to say, Nat, I don't know a lot about this. Can you help? Or I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing, so I'm just going to say it. Instead of, I'm afraid to say the wrong thing, so I'm not going to say anything, right? To have those conversations about and make neurodiversity be another chapter of that diversity story. Also, there's a huge intersectionality piece here. When you say autistic, most people, society, what you see in the media is an autistic is a white cisgender male who's really good in IT, who is happy sitting in the basement, You know, your companies could fill the basement with neurodivergent programmers. They'll work all night long. You throw a couple of cases of Red Bull and a couple of pizzas down the stairs, and they're happy. And my son is one of them. But neurodivergents can be artists, accountants, lawyers, doctors, landscapers, anything that they are passionate about. And there's so much bias out there. I forget the exact percentage, but I think it was over 40% of people of color who are incarcerated right now are neurodivergent. And they did not get the help that they needed younger on because the tests that were written are biased. So what do we work to change that? I was not recognized as neurodivergent until college. I battled with depression. I battled with why am I broken? Because I didn't fit the mold of that test. And so many people who are not of that white cisgender privileged, that's who the tests were written for. That's why you see blue puzzle pieces, that baby blue color, because this is something that's only seen in little boys, right? No. That's why the puzzle piece is rejected from the neurodivergent community. That puzzle piece was originally made by the medical profession to say this is something that we have to solve. It's a mystery. Something's missing in these people. And autistics are whole people. The only thing missing is your acceptance for who they are. So let's move to the infinity symbol. Or you may see the autism bumper sticker with these bright primary colors, fostering that idea that it's only seen in children, and we grow out of it. That we don't need quiet hours for a job fair, or we don't need to be able to go to a professor and say, can I sit in the back because I wiggle a lot and sometimes I need to walk around a little just to help pay attention. And have that freedom to do that, just as if somebody said, I need to sit in the front because that's where the accessibility for wheelchairs is. And normalize it, right? We offer time in the day for people to go pray or a nursing parent to pump breast milk, and it's normal. It's like getting eyeglasses or being left-handed. And we need to get to a place where it's normalized and it's okay to say that I am a female neurodivergent. I'm not a person with a uterus. I'm not a person with this or that or this as a negative, right? We say person with a broken leg. We don't say a broken leg person. And for that same reason, seeing this as a positive, I don't say with or has or on the spectrum, right? What the heck does that mean, right? You could be on the Asian spectrum. You could be on the LGBT spectrum. Use the word. Give it power. And not have that, like if I say I have an autistic son, which I do, sometimes the response is, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I'm not. He's probably going to be buying me a villa somewhere. So all those mean girls can watch out.
So if I can follow up, what advice would you have for neurodivergent young people regarding maximization of their skills toward a career?
Great question, and it's one I love. I'm actually a scoutmaster as well, so I even work with younger people, and it's sometimes working with the parents as well to embrace who you are and use those strengths. If I asked for you to think of a bird, I'm gonna just raise your hand and tell me the name of a bird. Robin. Cardinal. Two more.
Goldfinch.
Goldfinch. One more. Flamingo. Awesome. Okay. This is an exercise I use with my scouts. I'm a penguin. Okay. I'm still a bird. I don't fly. Do not try to give me flying lessons. It's going to be very frustrating. If you're going to rate me on how well I move on land, awkward. But if you need a strong swimmer, if you need somebody with the strength to survive the harsh Antarctic temperatures, that has the skill to raise a chick on their toes, that has the loyalty when a winter storm comes, that we know enough to huddle together to keep ourselves warm, then I am your bird. And remove those biases. I do this with the scouts, and usually one will say, and an ostrich, and I'm like, yes, and the ostrich too, because they don't fly either. But to remove that stigma of that there's something wrong or broken, and embrace that diversity. Having the courage to come out, whether LGBT or anything else, that's why I say LGBT and neurodiversity have very strong ties. There's a lot of intersectionality there. It's because there's a shame, there's a culture, you don't want to talk about it. There's also a CQ component. CQ is cultural intelligence, right? We have EQ, we have IQ, CQ. So talking about neurodiversity in Northern Europe or Australia or the US, but having that same conversation in Asia or another country, they may be in a different place on that awareness journey, moving to acceptance, moving to advancement.
Well, I think you're really getting through, because I have two questions from the audience that are quite closely related, and they're both about basically what are good practices or work can we go to learn about how to do better in terms of acceptance of neurodiverse workers, learners, and from the faculty, what can we do to promote success amongst neurodivergent learners?
Yeah, I would get educated, learn about these things, and most importantly, talk to neurodivergents. And the way you can talk to neurodivergents is for you to use those words. You know, I do not discriminate against race, creed, color, and neurodivergence. Like, put it right out there. Use these words so people can feel safe. Change your language to be positive, to just say, how can I help you succeed, whatever it might be. It might be that English is not your first language. It might be that you're an ADHDer and you need your classes to be recorded. So when you have the little squirrel moments, that you can refer back. Or can you help me find a buddy so I can go back and ask for a clarification or have some extra time with the TA. Some of these things should not require you going or needing that medical paper, but to be able to talk about it with a sense of empathy, without a sense of shame, and realize that there are so many layers of discrimination. Last year at IBM, April is Neurodiversity Advancement Month, and we focused on cross-pollinate, get it, the bumblebee theme? And we had events like, what is it like to be a Black female neurodivergent? Because that adds different layers upon layers that you have to peel back. And being neurodivergent crosses all of those diversity factors, right? Because you can be neurodivergent and have a physical disability, or be Asian, or be LGBT, and everything all together. And it's 1 in 20, so it's 1 in 20 of your co-workers. There's about 80 or so people here, so I'm one of them. And I'm sure there are others in the room that how we have this conversation is having the courage to come out and be seen and be heard and help with the movement. It's scary as heck to do that, but if the school, if the company is offering safe spaces, is using the word and normalizing it, it's not a huge leap.
Great, thank you. I wonder if we can get you to shift gears just a little bit and talk about your role in IBM in supply chain.
Absolutely. I love working in supply chain. I think it feeds everything, and yeah, I'm a dork. And I especially love...
We have a whole department full of...
It's great.
I'm not going to say the word.
You can say the word.
I'm not sure that... What was it?
Dork.
Dork, okay.
Okay, raise your hand if you're a dork. Okay, good. See, we're going to empower this. I especially love reverse logistics. And the analogy I like to use, and again, audience participation makes me feel I'm not alone up here. Who here watches those cooking shows? Okay? Who here actually watches those cooking shows and actually is going to ever cook one of those things? I love the mystery box challenge. I find it so much fun to watch people have to solve problems where you cannot control the input, right? If I can say, go to the supermarket, buy whatever you want, and make a dish, I'm sure it'll be fun. And you got to love what you do. So having that to say, Nat, here's the mystery box, and we have this stuff coming to end of life, and here's the value, and here's the opportunities that we might have. We got to evaluate the ROI. We have to evaluate, why are we doing this way? Oh, we've been doing it this way for so long. And that might have been great 3 years ago. But supply chain moves so fast, so we have to build in debriefing and keep asking these questions of innovation, of reinventing. And I think the tie-in to neurodiversity is that sense of empathy and understanding. Because if I'm asking you, how can I help simplify your process? Your gut reaction is, oh, I don't want to say because I might lose my job, right? We have to have genuine, honest conversations so I can find out what the blockers are, and let's work together to bust through the blocker and maybe make something that's really exciting. And working across silo, working across all of these different departments, like how your ethics teams works with this, it's all one big Venn diagram. So the same, sometimes it's called soft skills to be able to talk to people. I like to rebrand that as success skills, because it's interwoven into everything.
And this magic box problem that you talked about reminds me of the scene in Apollo 13 where the oxygen generators don't work anymore, and they've got a piece of tubing and a box and a grommet, and okay, now what do you do? And I think I remember you saying last night that takes thinking outside the box, and neurodivergents oftentimes don't even see the box.
Absolutely. And innovation brings value. If you can open your heart and take a very small leap and maybe spend a little bit of money thinking about the sensory diet you're giving your students or those opportunities, focusing on this has led to more revenue for companies, right? We don't like money. More empathetic managers. As a parent, having these programs allowed my son to now be an IT professional. He was recognized, see, I'm not using diagnosed, right? He was recognized at 6. And I had the privilege to be able to hire a civil rights lawyer and fight the schools and fight IEP and 504. And he's interned with some major companies out there. But I had to fight. And he had to learn to speak up for himself. And a lot of parents, I think, sometimes, out of an air of caution and love, do not empower their youth enough to say, this is what I need. And knowing what you need or knowing what that kryptonite is just as important as knowing what your superpower is. Because they're not going to go away. I know that I have a thought Roomba. I know that I talk too much. I take over the conversations. I have ideas like fireworks that I want to share with everybody, which is great, but sometimes not great. So social contracting can be used on teams, in businesses, and one of my social contract thing is if I'm riffing too much, my safe word is pineapple. So you say pineapple, and we move on. So I'm not offended. You're not like, oh my God, she'll never shut up. We say pineapple and we move on. And I'm asking that for you to help me with that, because that's one of my kryptonites. So just talk about it, right? And it might, when we do that, we build this empathetic team. And that empathetic team can be, I need a break in the day because I go pray, or from 3 to 5, I have to pick up my kids at school, so we can try to avoid those meetings or record them if you can't do that. I'm a night owl. I do better, whatever. And saying that right up front. We're going to use the Discord channel. No, we're going to use Slack. We're going to use a box vote. Having that built into that social contract when you're making that team, and not just for the neurodivergents to say this, but to everybody. So we can set, we can not be building or setting seeds in sand. We can build that fertile environment that we have to do the work. You're building a garden, you have to get the rocks out. You have to cut back the trees so the sunlight can get where you want it to. You have to do the work. It's not going to happen on its own. And it's going to be hard work. It's going to be hard conversations. You're going to hit bumps in the road. You're going to do it the wrong way. You're going to have to course correct. Kind of sounds like business.
Indeed. I just want to hit the rewind button here a little bit, because the first time that I heard her talk about the safe word, I was thinking about safe word the way it's usually used, which would be you would use the safe word. But no, it's people that she's working with use the safe word. So that's very cool. And I want to go to a next question, which is from the audience. Takes us away from supply chain a little bit, but given what I heard this morning, I think you might want to really address this one. What do you think about modern depictions of neurodiverse characters like Sean in The Good Doctor?
Great question. I actually think it's a good thing. It would be, and actually Sean represents my son, and the actor does such a great job. Like, I was fearing for a while they had a hidden camera in my house to do data mining. It could be better. We could, there's a Netflix show, I forget the name of it, that shows neurodivergence in women and people of color, and it would be great. But I'm just happy that those shows are starting to normalize the words. I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater and say it's a bad show because the actor himself is not neurodivergent, because it is opening people's minds. That show has shown, if you don't know, it's an ABC show. It's called The Good Doctor, and the main character is white, cisgender male, and a new word for everybody, ears open, a low support needs, autistic. So you may have previously heard the term high or low functioning. Who gets to decide what functioning means, right? If you're at 100% and you still need help using the toilet, or you need, self-life skills help, you're still functioning at your 100%. So who gets to decide what functioning means? You can measure how much support somebody gets discreetly outside of their mind. And the same thing goes with moving any biases and stereotypes with having high support needs with intellectual disabilities. Because you could have high support needs and be brilliant, or not have intellectual disabilities. So really disconnecting those two. Can they do better on the shows? Would it be great to show somebody not in the sciences, not like a Rain Man? Absolutely. But I'm still happy that it's being talked about and it's on a main network show, and people are starting to learn that neurodivergents are in society, that it's this 1 in 20, and it's okay. It's a good question.
So a question that I often ask is coming, and I have a feeling that your response to it might be quite enlightening for us relative to some of the other responses we've received. It's just that, and our experience has been that every great leader has a story, maybe an event or a mentor or a college course that inspired them or influenced their perspective on business. What is Nat's story?
I have so many. From the neurodiversity standpoint, I would say it was my son. And seeing the discrimination that he was facing as a 19-year-old trying to go to that job fair where it was the mosh pit, or seeing his sadness of going, I'm never going to get a job, right? I'm flagged as weird from day one, and that sparked me to have to take action. And being in a fertile ground like IBM, putting that all together was like, yeah, let's do this. This year, we actually started a neurodivergent out executive program. So far, 8 IBM executive has raised their hand and say, yep, I am neurodivergent. And they're talking about being bipolar. They're talking about being dyslexic. They're talking about their journey with substance abuse and depression until they got that diagnosis and was like, oh, I'm just left-handed in a right-handed world, or whatever analogy you want to give. But demasking that. From a business perspective, I have to say it was my dad, who was a first-generation American that had to work hard, that had to be persistent, that had to keep being what we now call agile, and to keep trying to improve, and not taking that as a negative, that we can always work smarter and not harder.
So another question that I often ask is that we often find that the greatest lessons come from situations that didn't go as planned. And do you have a oops or I wish I had made a different decision experience in your past that was led to insights?
Yeah, I'll use one from the neurodiversity world. I've done plenty of oopses in supply chain or in IT, but we have a YouTube playlist, Neurodiversity at IBM. And one of the first videos that we made was a video that we named, What's It Like to Be Neurodivergent at IBM? And it's a 3-minute video. I recommend everybody go and get it. I don't get a commission when you watch it. But it's a version 2. So it was made earlier on, and I did not have a strong enough voice at the time. And the video was scripted all by allies. It was voiced over by somebody who was a leader, but not neurodivergent, and did not focus on that aspect. And people usually ask me if there's one word to talk about neurodiversity and where we need to be, my word is parity. Because we need parity, right? Just as any other identity. So they released this video, and the internet trolls pounced on it to say, you're making a video called What's It Like to Be Neurodivergent, and neurodivergence didn't script it or write it, or, I'm calling you out on this. And they were absolutely right. And it was just about that same time that we rebranded Neurodiversity at IBM and went to a motto of nothing about us without us, where the neurodivergence had to take over leadership. So I'm honored and blessed that our executive sponsor, that myself, our main DEI leader, are all out and proudly neurodivergent, that we go to these safe spaces for vetting, to collect ideas, for ghostwriting, to pull them in, and I should have seen that. But at that time, I didn't find my voice loud enough to call it out before it happened. So now we're doing everything that we can to, and some things still slip through the cracks, but to go through and say, making checklists, right? If we're going to support an organization, the organization needs to have neurodivergent representation in their board of directors or their leadership, or to be using positive, empowering language. And there's plenty of great organizations that want to help parents and do good work, but that sense of parity and that sense of representation and the same vetting that you might do for an agency that was going to help another diversity factor, you need to do for the neurodiversity factor as well. So that was a big bad oops. And it kind of gave me the kick in the pants to say, we can't have that happen again. And that helped more neurodivergents to come out and be heard.
So this is a little bit of a ringer, but I think it's something that you talked about last night that I think is a way to build on the answer that you just gave. Could you talk a little bit about the two-way street and how you're not advocating for a free pass?
Absolutely. With any diversity factor, again, goes back to the theme of parity, is that the neurodivergents need to come forward to say what they need, but with the understanding that you have to come into a two-way street in your allyship with your allies. So if I say, I'm neurodivergent, I have a get out of jail free card, or I'm entitled to be rude and insensitive, it doesn't work that way. One of my neurodivergent traits is that I consider myself to be punctually challenged, which means I'm usually late. So I have multiple alarms on my watch. I try to do everything I can to be on time. It doesn't mean that I can just bail and just be late and show up, or think that it's okay to stand somebody up if I have to meet them. So I am trying very hard. And the other two-way side of the street is for you to understand that I am struggling to get there on time. So if I am a couple of minutes late, to not berate me, or if I show up on time, just be like, hey, good job. Like, we all need that positive affirmation, but it's having understanding on both sides. I have to work harder, and it would be great to get an appreciation of the other side, or to have a student say, I need this, and the professor to say, well, I'm not okay with that, but then working together to come up with a compromise that both sides can agree upon.
So we just have a couple minutes left. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like the listeners to hear?
Well, we hit representation. I would say if you're a neurodivergent, consider coming out, not only for your own journey, but for those that are around you, especially if you're from URM, the underrepresented minorities, because most of the people that are coming out are white, or white cisgender and male, and move away from that awareness. Take action, get educated, ask hard questions, and normalize it. And meet some more neurodivergents. We're pretty cool people.
Well, I must say that I've learned more in the last 24 hours about this than I can really say. Do you have any kind of closing words on how we can continue the journey of learning and getting from awareness to acceptance to advocacy?
Yeah, I would say in any diversity movement, and I was talking to a student, I don't know if they were in the room when we had breakfast, that she said she completed a diversity class here at Penn State, and there was no mention of neurodiversity at all. So when you're talking about DEI, be sure to add neurodiversity in there as another chapter, because it's there. There's a business case for it. It's 1 in 20, and it's a matter of why not why. Or just adding that neurodivergence word to your, we do not, or we embrace, call it out, use the words, raise the flag. And like I said, very similar to LGBT, if you talk about it, if you show your pronouns, my name is Nat, my pronouns are she, her, you're most likely to get somebody to say, oh, that's great, my pronouns are they, them. But by you making that first step to build that safe space, you're going to get others. So I would take go back to your diversity initiatives, to your training, to your ethics, and see if it is including that population, and change it. And just start. Just start. You're never going to get it right. You're going to do it the wrong way. You're going to get called out by the trolls. But just do it.
Thanks. Please join me. We have a little token of our appreciation.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm happy to help you see if we can get this open.
It's so pretty, I don't want to.
I think there's a scene in Splash where she gets a gift, and it's gift wrapped like this, and obviously she doesn't understand what this is, and she says, "I will treasure it always."
Yes, I will. Gotta save the ribbon. I'm a scoutmaster. We can do something with it.
All right, great.
Sustainability, right? Doesn't smell like food.
Oh, for crying out loud, it's taped shut.
I don't have my scout pocket knife on me. Any scouts in the room? Any former Eagles?
Do you have a knife? Let's try a key. Oh my goodness.
Persistence. There we go. What do we think it is? Pulse? What do we think? A lion.
Lion.
It is a lion. Awesome.